Quite a collection, isn't it?
Pixel art and beat-em-ups have always gone hand in hand, from smoky arcades of the late 80s to indie darlings on modern consoles. There's just something about the over-the-top brawls that keeps the genre alive decades later. In today's video, we're digging into 13 of the best pixel art beat-em-ups, mixing old-school legends with modern masterpieces. You'll see how classics like River City Ransom or Comix Zone laid the groundwork, while newer titles like Streets of Rage 4 and Shredder's Revenge prove the genre is evolving. And because we're covering both eras, we'll get to appreciate how much variety developers have squeezed out of the simple idea of walking right and punching everything in sight. So let's jump straight into this brawl-ready lineup of top 13 pixel art beat-em-ups, old and modern both. Streets of Rage 4. You'd think a series that went quiet after the mid-90s would stay buried, but Wood Oak City had other plans. Set a decade after the third game, the story throws veterans Axel and Blaze back into chaos, teaming up with Adam Hunter's daughter Cherry and cyber-armed newcomer Floyd. And their mission is to take down the Syndicate's new leaders, the Y-Twins, children of the infamous Mr. X, who plan to enslave the city with hypnotic signals. What I really appreciate here is how the gameplay doesn't merely just mimic the old formula. Classic side-scrolling brawls return, with up to 4 players smashing through hordes, picking up weapons, and chaining combos. Special moves now cost health, but can be earned back if you keep your assault going without getting hit. The fighters come with their own quirks, from Cherry's agility to Floyd's massive grapple range, and long combo strings let you juggle enemies into oblivion. Behind the scenes, Dotemu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush joined forces in 2018 using a modified Streets of Fury engine. Launching in 2020 across PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch, the game sold millions and even spawned the Mr. X Nightmare DLC with extra characters and moves.
I just took out a dozen Yakuza bodyguards. I can take out a few more. You ready for this?
River City Girls 1 and 2. After brawling through the back streets of Wood Oak City, let's shift to a pair of games that bring high school drama into full-on street chaos. Way Forward, best known for Shantae, teamed up with Arc System Works in 2019 to launch River City Girls, a spin-off of the long-running Kunio-kun series. It flipped the script. Instead of Kunio and Riki saving the day, their girlfriends Misako and Kyoko smash their way across town to rescue them. The story is campy and self-aware, with our 2 leads tearing through detention, alleys, malls and nightclubs, while interrogating bosses that feel pulled straight from anime tropes. The best part is that the RPG-light mechanics of River City Ransom return. Defeated thugs drop cash that you can spend on stat-boosting food, healing items, and new fighting moves at the dojo. Add in the recruit system, where some beaten enemies can be summoned as assist characters, and the combat layers deepen quickly. By 2022, River City Girls 2 doubled down. It added Kunio and Riki as starters, new playable characters, expanded areas, and online co-op. Released across all major platforms, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and later mobile, the sequel polished the formula, earning praise for its animation and humor, even if backtracking wore some critics out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. If River City's chaos wasn't wild enough, the sewers of New York crank things up with a green team we all grew up with. Tribute Games, the Montreal studio, with brawler experience from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game finally realized their long-standing pitch to Nickelodeon in 2022 with Shredder's Revenge. Published by Dotemu, this was a deliberate throwback to Konami's classic arcade hits, yet dressed with modern flourishes. The story keeps it Saturday morning simple. Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and Rocksteady launch a scheme to turn the Statue of Liberty into a weaponized Statue of Tyranny. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, April, and Splinter jump into action, later joined by Casey Jones. Battles stretch across TV stations, rooftops, sewers, and eventually Dimension X, culminating in a showdown against Super Shredder. I loved that the original 1987 cartoon voice cast returned. Hearing them in a brand new adventure gave me instant nostalgia. Gameplay nails the sweet spot between retro and fresh. The Turtles look timeless, with super moves, taunts, pizza-powered boosts, and even radical mode for heightened combat. Story mode includes challenges, upgrades, and exploration, while arcade mode goes old school with limited lives. Up to 6 players can fight together locally or online, pulling off tag team attacks or even sharing health with high fives. Released across PC, Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, the game sold 1 million copies in its first week, and later expanded with Dimension Shellshock DLC, adding survival runs and new fighters like Usagi and Karai. Fight and Rage. Often, the greatest beat-em-ups aren't made by big studios at all. In 2017, Uruguayan developer Sebastián García, a one-man army handling graphics, design, and programming, dropped Fight and Rage, a throwback to the 90s arcade chaos. Gonzalo Varela backed him up with a thumping soundtrack, and together they built a modern cult hit that feels like it could have been hiding in a CPS2 cabinet. Set in a far future where mutants rule after a devastating electromagnetic event known as the Big Pulse, humanity has been enslaved under the iron grip of the boss. Players take control of 3 unlikely rebels: Gal, a lightning-fast martial artist; Ricardo, a powerhouse Minotaur wrestler; and F. Norris, a mysterious ninja. The trio fights to topple mutant tyranny, with multiple branching paths and endings, shaping how the rebellion plays out. Gameplay thrives on simplicity, just 3 buttons, yet the system allows juggling combos, parries, weapon use, and even a versus mode for one-on-one fights. The unlockables are the real stuff. Alternate costumes, insane difficulty modes, and even the ability to play as enemies. Local co-op supports up to 3 players, with optional friendly fire for extra chaos. Available on PC, Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox, Fight and Rage proves indie devs can match the old masters punch for punch. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the Game Complete Edition. Sometimes a game's reputation grows stronger in absence, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is proof of that. Ubisoft Montreal and Chengdu originally launched it in 2010 as a tie-in to the movie, but it leaned more on Brian Lee O'Malley's graphic novels than Hollywood. With pixel art from animator Paul Robertson and an electrifying chiptune soundtrack by Anna Managuchi, it felt like a playable mixtape of every retro beat-em-up we used to obsess over. The plot loosely follows Scott's mission to win Ramona Flower's heart by defeating her 7 evil exes, spread across 7 side-scrolling stages. Up to 4 players can join in, choosing Scott, Ramona, Kim, Steven, or unlockable extras like Knives and Wallace. RPG light systems let you level up, unlock moves, and buy stat boosts or items in quirky shops. Co-op was pretty cool too, with mechanics like reviving teammates by kicking their spirit back into their body or sharing money and health. Though delisted in 2014 due to licensing, fan demand eventually convinced Ubisoft to revive it. The complete edition hit Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, PC and Stadia in January 2021, bundling DLC characters and online multiplayer. Now, with Tribute Games preparing Scott Pilgrim EX for 2026, this series is finally getting the extended life it always deserved. Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons. It's hard to believe a franchise that kicked off back in 1987 is still evolving, but Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons proves the Lee brothers aren't done cleaning up New York's streets. Set in an alternate 1990X, post-nuclear war, New York is ruled by rival gangs, and young Billy and Jimmy decide to take matters into their own fists. What will actually catch you off guard is how this one shakes up the formula. It's a linear brawler with a roguelite hybrid, where mission order changes level length, enemy density, and difficulty. Combat leans on tag team action. You pick two fighters. Billy and Jimmy are obvious picks, but Marion's ranged gunplay, or Uncle Martin's heavy strikes, mix things up. As you earn tokens, you unlock a roster of 20 characters, each with unique playstyles. Swapping mid-combo keeps fights dynamic, and I had fun experimenting with pairings to see which duos clicked. Beyond the campaign, modes like Survival and Versus keep the replay loop alive. Released in 2023 and still getting free DLC like Evil Marion and Super Anubis in 2025, it's probably the boldest Double Dragon in decades, balancing nostalgia with modern roguelite replayability. River City Ransom. Long before Misako and Kyoko smashed their way onto modern consoles, Technos Japan had already laid the foundation for quirky, open-world brawling with downtown Neketsu Monogatari. Western players knew it as River City Ransom when it hit the NES in 1989, and while it didn't light up sales charts then, it went on to become one of the most influential beat-em-ups ever. The plot was simple but effective. High schoolers Alex and Ryan set out to rescue Ryan's girlfriend Cindy from a villain named Slick. The thing that really makes it memorable is how the city itself becomes a playground. Gangs with names like the Generic Dudes and the Jocks roam the streets. Trash cans, pipes, and brass knuckles become weapons, and gang leaders serve as quirky bosses on the road to River City High. Where I think it really stood out was in its RPG-like systems. Instead of just mashing fists, you earned cash from fallen enemies, spent it in shops on food or books, and leveled stats like punch, kick, or agility. Techniques like dragon feet or stone hands turned button mashing into stylish combos. Technos' American branch localized it with jeans and t-shirt sprites, replacing Japanese school uniforms. And decades later, it's been re-released on everything from Game Boy Advance to modern bundles like the Double Dragon and Kunio-kun Retro Brawler collection. Proof that this cult classic never really left the streets. Comix Zone. Few games wear their concept as boldly on their sleeve as Comix Zone. Released in 1995 for the Sega Genesis, it dropped players straight into the panels of a comic book, speech bubbles, hand-drawn frames, and all. You control Sketch Turner, a grunge-era comic artist who gets literally pulled into his own creation after lightning strikes his work. Now trapped inside, he must fight mutants, solve puzzles, and ultimately stop the villain Mortus from wiping out humanity within the inked world. What hooked me immediately is how the stages flow panel to panel. Punching an enemy through the edge of a frame makes them crash into the next panel, and little touches, like tearing a piece of the page into a paper airplane, or using Sketch's pet rat roadkill to sniff out hidden items, made the game feel unlike any other brawler of its time. Development was led by Sega Technical Institute's Peter Morawiec, with artists like Jonah Hex co-creator Tony DeZuniga shaping its visuals. Unfortunately, its late Genesis release meant it struggled commercially, landing just as the PlayStation and Saturn stole the spotlight. Still, it found a cult following, got a GBA port in 2002, and has lived on in Sega compilations and the Genesis Mini. Looking back, I'd argue it's one of the boldest experiments in beat-em-up history.
River City's toughest, shaped and raised by the many battles he's been in. Kunio. A new fight is coming. River City Melee Mach.
River City Melee Mach. Every Kunio-kun spin-off seems to have its own flavour, and in 2019, Arc System Works brought back one of the series' wilder branches with River City Melee Mach. Instead of sticking to a classic side-scrolling rescue story, this one goes full Battle Royale brawler. 4 players smashing it out until only one team remains. The roster is almost overwhelming. 30 different teams, over 180 characters, and more than 250 special moves. Building a dream team is only half the fun, honestly. What you'll enjoy most here is that the stages aren't flat arenas. They're filled with hazards, traps you can trigger to send foes flying. And you can tweak the rules by allowing bombs, banning sharp weapons, or turning item chaos all the way up. Modes are equally varied. Single play drops you into quirky team storylines. Free play sets up quick matches. Change match swaps teammates in when you get knocked out. And endless battle challenges you to keep fighting until your health finally runs dry. Alongside couch multiplayer, online PvP adds some extra spice. Released on PC and consoles in October 2019, River City Melee Mach didn't grab the spotlight like some bigger beat-em-ups, but for Kunio-kun fans, it's a chaotic playground that keeps the spirit of the series alive in a totally different way.
Okay, let's try that again.
Midnight Fight Express. Not every beat-em-up needs a crew of fighters. Sometimes one ex-criminal with a mysterious drone sidekick is enough. That's the setup in Midnight Fight Express, a 2022 indie project spearheaded by solo Polish developer Jakub Dzwinel and published by Humble Games. It's wild to think one person designed most of this, because the game feels like a blockbuster brawler. The story casts you as Babyface, a former enforcer pulled back into the underworld by an AI called Droney. With the city on the brink of a criminal takeover, you've got until sunrise to fight through 41 levels packed with gangs, bosses, and improvised chaos. And trust me, the chaos gets ridiculous. I've tossed enemies into exploding toilets and finished fights with a plunger in hand. Combat is the star here. Motion captured by stuntman Eric Jacobus, every punch, parry, and takedown looks brutally smooth. The skill tree keeps you unlocking new tricks, from grapples to stylish counters, and the arsenal mixes melee with guns, blades, and anything else lying around. Throw in Noise Cream's pulsing electronic soundtrack, and the whole thing plays like an action movie you're choreographing yourself. Released on PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Switch, Midnight Fight Express quickly earned praise for its customization options. For me, it's one of those rare indie beat-em-ups that makes you feel like you're directing your own fight film.
Ты думаешь, что справишься без меня? Ты не сможешь. Я тебе нужен.
Mother Russia Bleeds. If you thought the Soviet Union was all grey blocks and bureaucracy, Mother Russia Bleeds paints it with blood and neon hallucinations. Released in 2016 by French indie outfit Le Cartel Studio and published by Devolver Digital, it was clearly inspired by Streets of Rage and Double Dragon, but took the genre into darker, nastier territory. The plot throws 4 Rusko-Romani street fighters, Sergei, Natasha, Ivan and Boris, into an alternate 1980s USSR, where the government colludes with the mafia to test and distribute a drug called Necro. Kidnapped and forced into experiments, the group breaks free, but now they're addicted to the very substance that both sustains them and warps their minds. Across prisons, sewers, nightclubs, and riot-filled streets, they fight to expose the corruption at the cost of their sanity. Depending on how you manage the necro injections, the ending swings from tragic overdose to bittersweet revolution. Gameplay sticks to side-scrolling carnage. You can fill syringes from convulsing corpses to heal or trigger a berserk mode, and 4-player local co-op makes the mayhem even more chaotic. Guns, bats, chairs, everything is fair game. It's brutal, unforgiving, and stylishly grotesque. Available on PC, PlayStation 4, and later Nintendo Switch, the game didn't shy away from controversy, but I remember thinking it was one of the boldest attempts to evolve the beat-em-up formula into something raw and unsettling. Treachery in Beatdown City. Every beat-em-up loves a kidnapped VIP, but Treachery in Beatdown City takes that cliché and twists it into something political, tactical, and a little absurd. The president gets nabbed by ninjas, the corrupt mayor shrugs, and suddenly it's up to 3 gritty street fighters to clean up New York. Instead of just button-mashing through goons, though, this 2020 indie from New Challenger and Huracan Works slows the action down with a hybrid system that blends RPG tactics and brawler combat. You can throw real-time punches and kicks, but the game actively nudges you to pause and plan. Using action points and fight points, think Fallout's VATS mixed with Fire Pro Wrestling, you chain together combos, parries or grapples. Enemies are less faceless thugs and more satirical caricatures of real-world problems. Corrupt cops, racist agitators, self-absorbed hipsters, and even gentrifiers. The grudge matches build narrative momentum, unlocking new moves and more brutal finishes. Personally, I found it refreshing to see a beat-em-up poke fun at social issues rather than just churn out faceless street punks. Sean Alexander Allen, the designer, cited NES classics like Bad Dudes and Double Dragon as visual inspiration, but wrapped them in themes influenced by films like Get Out. After a long crowdfunding and development cycle, the game finally hit PC and Switch in March 2020. Reviews were mixed, but almost everyone agreed. This was one of the strangest, gutsiest experiments the genre has seen.
More fools come trying to destroy me.
And if they can.
Dungeon Fighter Online. Not many beat-em-ups can claim to have out-earned Hollywood blockbusters, but Dungeon Fighter Online did just that. Neopal, a South Korean studio under Nexon, launched it in 2005 as a small project, yet it exploded into one of the most played games ever, pulling in over 850 million players and more than 22 billion in revenue. Honestly, when I first tried it, gameplay felt like a modernized arcade brawler, kinda like Double Dragon meets Golden Axe, then layer on MMO and RPG systems. Players move across 2D belt scroll stages, carving through hordes of monsters with flashy skills, juggle heavy combos, and class-specific movesets. What's neat is the input system. You can either trigger skills with hotkeys or perform fighting game style inputs to reduce cooldowns. There are PvP arenas, guilds, raids, and party play. And the simple side-scrolling setup becomes a massive online ecosystem. Development is just as wild. Originally planned as a fighting game, the team pivoted to a beat-em-up with RPG progression to avoid scaring off casual players. Closed betas in 2004-2005 tested the formula, and by the time the global version launched in 2015, the game was a juggernaut. Today it's available worldwide on PC, still proving that pixel art brawlers can scale to MMO-sized success. And that's the lineup. 13 pixel-perfect brawlers that show just how flexible and enduring this genre really is. Some add RPG depth, some keep it pure and brutal, and some even bring in tactics or rogue-like systems. Yet they all share that same core satisfaction, pressing a few buttons and watching chaos unfold in crisp, chunky sprites. So which of these would you put at the top of your own list? Drop your favorite pixel art, beat 'em up in the comments. Maybe you'll convince me to revisit one I missed. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into retro and modern gems. Until then, keep those combos tight and your quarters ready.
Let's get out there and finish what we started.